Hello. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I am Komposed, and today I'm going to be showing you how I made this self-care box. But first things first, you might be thinking, what is a self-care box? When we experience feelings of depression, sadness, anxiety, anger, stress, and things like that, often the last thing we think about is that we need to take care of our mental health. And yet it is in these moments that taking care of ourselves should be our number one priority. But how are you supposed to remember to take a walk or call a friend when all you want to do is lie down and give up? That's where the self-care box comes in. This box is filled with things that help to uplift your mood. Whether it's a fluffy blanket, some herbal tea, or even some red lipstick for when you want to feel fierce, this box can be filled with anything that brings you joy and calm. When you find yourself in a bad space, you don't need to remember a list of things that make you feel better. All you need to remember is to reach for your self-care box. So to make this box, I just used an old shoebox I had lying around. Please note, this is not a promo for Errol Lorenz. And the first thing I did was I grabbed an old magazine. Please don't judge me for owning a copy of the Cosmopolitan. What I did then was tear the magazine pages up into smaller strips and bits and pieces so that I could stick them all over the outside of my box in a collage style. Now I won't make you sit through the entirety of me sticking pieces of paper onto the box, but I just want to say how much I enjoy doing this collage style, sticking bits and pieces onto a surface, because there's no wrong or right way to do it. You literally just stick pieces of paper onto a surface at random. And it can become a nice exercise in mindfulness. And now I'll just show you what it looks like with the whole box covered. Then to sort of tone down the stark black and white of the magazine print, I painted over the whole box with very watered down white acrylic paint. You can get a very similar effect using white gesso, but I didn't have gesso, plus it's really expensive here for some reason. The point of gesso is to prepare a surface for mixed media, but this box wasn't exactly going to start buckling when I painted on it, so white acrylic paint I think did the trick just fine. The magazine paper did warp a bit while the paint was still wet, but once it dried, it straightened out again quite nicely. Washi tape time! I have so much washi tape lying around at home, and it's just not something I regularly use. So this box was definitely a perfect opportunity. At first I thought I was going to use all the different colors, but I realized that the black and white washi tape in the different patterns gave it quite a nice, elegant and coherent look. So I just stuck that along all the edges of my box. So at this point I thought my box looked really cool, like I loved how it looked. But the thing is, I always play it safe when it comes to my projects, and this just wasn't the time to play it safe. When I was decorating this box, I really wanted it to be a creative expression. So I carried on. I knew I would probably hate what I did next, but you know, at the end of it, I really like the direction I took. Therefore, I broke out my watercolors and I used what they call the packaging technique to just smush some blobs of color all over the lid of my box. What the packaging technique really is you just put some wet paint. You can use spray mists or watercolors, and you take some of that wet paint and you put it onto a piece of plastic, and then you turn that piece of plastic over onto your surface, and you just, as I said, smush the color around into a pattern or blotch that you like. I really like rainbow colors. I don't know, they just make me happy. So I did blobs in all the colors of the rainbow. I was a little impatient and lazy. I know I could have waited for each of the colors to dry before I added the next color, but I was very keen to get moving with this project, and for some reason I didn't feel like getting out my hairdryer. But in the end I think it turned out alright, and the colors didn't get too muddy. I really like the size of this watercolor palette. It's a really nice travel size, but the only thing is that there is no purple, and I love using purple in my paintings. And I know I can make it out of blue and red, but because I use it so often, I would just like to have some purple. It also doesn't make sense because those two colors on either side of the red, there's an orange and then a browny orange. They actually come out the exact same color once they're wet, so they could have easily replaced one of those colors with purple. Oh well. And finally, I didn't really like how the colors sort of stood all alone, separate to one another. So I took a wet paintbrush and just touched up the edges to blend them a bit better. Time for some stamping. I have quite a large collection of stamp pads. Most of them I got for quite cheap at a Christmas craft market. And then I have a very large collection of stamps which we've collected over the years. I tried to choose stamps that had really fun shapes, and I just stamped them in random colors at random on all four sides of the box. Now the thing is, even after waiting 48 hours, the ink would just not dry. And I think the reason is because the magazine paper on the box just isn't absorbent. But no worries, I just had to be quite careful with it, and then once I'd sprayed my box with clear finish, it sealed in all that wet ink. Now this part I absolutely love. I'm so glad I did it. I wrote out self-care box using a gold Koki or felt tip marker. I did it in a skinny font on some white card, and then when I cut it out I left a thin white border around the edges, and it looked so cool. It really tied in everything together. It toned down that very colorful background. So to get all the letters the same width and height, I just drew a sort of grid box system, and each letter had a box, and then there was a little strip next to each letter to make sure I had enough space to cut it out. So now that everything's on my box, it's time to take my box outside and give it a good coat of clear lacquer. Lacquer is actually a word in Afrikaans, so lacquer. Anyway, I gave it a coat of clear lacquer. In some places I sprayed a bit too thickly, so the stamp ink started to run a bit, but it wasn't too bad, and once the whole thing had dried, the ink didn't smudge at all. Back inside, I cut out a piece of scrapbook paper to put into the base of my box. As you can see, the bottom of the box was quite messy, so I just wanted to cover that up. The second last thing I did was on a scrap piece of paper, I wrote out the heading "Try this," and under that I put a list of all the activities that help me to feel better when I'm in a bad space. I would really suggest making a list like this for your box, because there's not always something physical associated with an activity that helps you to feel better. For example, sitting out in the sunshine. I mean, you can't put a little bit of sunshine. I got the sun in my pocket. You can't put a little bit of sunshine into your box. I wish I could. So this is just for those sorts of activities. I stuck my list to the inside of the lid of my box so that it won't get damaged by the contents of the box, and so that I can just flip the lid over and there's my list waiting for me. And finally, once my box is all finished, it's time for the best part, to fill it with all the things that I really enjoy. As you can see, I've put in some hand cream, rooibos tea, nail polish in my favorite colors, red lipstick, and an art journal. As I go along, I'll add more things to my box. And there we go, it's all done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this has inspired you to make your own box. It's such an amazing tool for helping you to get through difficult times. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Cheers!